The first document my husband handed me after 10 weeks away was a contract selling the lodge I legally controlled. Grant smiled as if the pages were a gift. Bennett Lodge glowed with rented chandeliers. A screen showed a glass resort where my mother's cedar lodge should have been. Snow whitened the old dock. You made it, Grant said, kissing my cheek, his hand closed around my elbow. It looked affectionate. I knew the pressure in his fingers. Everyone thinks you're still in Duluth, he murmured. Please don't make this awkward. My flood recovery assignment had ended 3 days early. In my bag was preliminary approval for an employee ownership share. I meant to surprise Grant and Caleb. Instead, 30 people held champagne in my lobby. Caleb appeared beside the screen in a new suit. He hugged me, then faced the investors. Avery decided to step away from daily operations, he announced. After everything she's been through, she deserves rest. Several people watched me with sympathy. Grant had prepared them. He had told them I was exhausted and stepping aside. I opened the contract. The first page called me a minority owner. I owned 60% of Bennett Lodge Holdings. Caleb owned 20. 20 sat in our family trust. Grant managed it but owned nothing. This is wrong, I said. Caleb's smile tightened. It's a working draft. It says I'm selling a minority interest. That's how the restructuring works. No. That's how fiction works. The room went quiet. Grant raised his glass. Avery has spent 2 months working disaster sites. She hasn't reviewed the new structure. 10 weeks, I thought. He had stopped counting after 6. Caleb changed the slide. Renderings covered the wall where photographs of our mother used to hang. Her fishing hat. Her flower-covered hands. All of it vanished behind villas, an infinity pool, and the words Arlen North Reserve. Then the financing summary appeared. My name sat beneath controlling member approval. Below it was my signature, not my real signature. A clean digital copy, 7 months earlier, after surgery. I had authorized Grant to handle payroll, utilities, and routine vendor payments. It did not authorize new debt or a sale. I looked at him. He wasn't nervous. That frightened me more than guilt would have. You approved this, he said. I approved payroll access. You told me to keep the business alive. Alive isn't the same as sold. Caleb stepped down. There it is. The reason we couldn't tell you sooner. What reason? You never trust me with anything. I remembered paying his rent after his restaurant failed, covering his tax bill, and giving him 20% because he wanted something of his own. Somehow, help had become proof that I thought he was weak. Grant guided me toward the hallway. We can discuss this privately, he whispered. Did you tell them I resigned? I told them you needed time. Did you tell the employees? His eyes shifted. That was enough. I faced the room. I could have exposed them. But I had spent my career studying failures. Levees rarely collapsed at the first visible crack. They failed because pressure built where no one looked, so I smiled. Grant is right. I've been away, and I need time to understand the proposal. His shoulders relaxed. Caleb looked triumphant. I'll review the financing package, I continued. Then we'll talk about my price. Grant raised his glass, certain he had one. I left before the applause ended. The guest rooms were supposedly full. So Grant arranged a cabin across the lake. By midnight, I sat at the kitchen table with my coat on, the unsigned buyout beside my laptop and the employee folder unopened in my bag. I searched the county property portal. Bennett Lodge appeared under recorded liens. I opened the newest filing. The mortgage had been registered 6 weeks earlier. Principal amount, $2,400,000. Borrower authorization, Avery Bennett. My scanned signature waited at the bottom. I stared at the signature until the letters stopped looking like my name. Next morning, I drove to Lake Arlen Community Bank and requested every document tied to the mortgage. The loan officer returned looking cautious. Mr. Mercer said you might come in. Of course he had. She could release the recorded filing, but the internal loan file required a formal ownership demand. I called Nia Patel from my car. Nia had audited one of my flood projects. She trusted records, she read the mortgage and touched the authorization block. This required controlling member approval, she said. Your husband's management authority was not enough. I showed her the limited power of attorney from my surgery, payroll, utilities, routine vendors, emergency repairs. Nothing here permits secured debt. So the mortgage is invalid? Possibly. But proving forgery and reversing a funded loan are separate problems. We need the trail legally. I squared the papers, Nia noticed. You do that when you are avoiding a reaction. I came for an audit. You came because your husband used your identity and your brother helped him. Silence may feel controlled, Avery, but it protected them. My phone buzzed. Tessa Monroe, the lodge's former operations manager, had texted, I heard you're back. We need to meet before Grant finds out. She chose a laundromat where machines covered our voices. Tessa carried a bag of spiral notebooks. Grant deleted the digital schedules before he fired me, she said. I kept backups. The pages showed cut shifts, dismissals, and renovation crews entering employee housing after midnight. You approved the layoffs. She said. That's what everyone was told. I approved nothing. Then he used your name whenever someone objected. She opened a notebook marked with red tabs. 3 payments appeared as emergency structural consulting. The vendor was Northline Development Advisory. No engineer visited, Tessa said. No report reached my office. I questioned it, and a week later my position disappeared. Nia searched the state registry. Northline's address led to a private mailbox outside Minneapolis. Its organizer was Owen Voss, Grant's former partner in a failed restaurant project. It was not proof. It was a direction. That afternoon, I returned to the lodge. 2 employee rooms were stripped to drywall while sample chairs filled the lobby. Grant met me with a thick envelope. Our attorneys improved the offer, he said. $800,000, no future debt exposure, and a clean exit. It looked generous until I read the payment schedule. $700,000 would come from the mortgage proceeds. They were offering me money borrowed against my own lodge. I need bank statements, vendor contracts, board minutes, payroll files, and every loan communication. Grant's expression cooled. That's excessive. I'm pricing my interest. His smile returned. Then we understand each other. Caleb stood in the doorway. You always cared more about control than family. I looked at the brother whose rent I had paid, whose tax debt I had cleared, and whose failed restaurant I had helped close without embarrassing him. I care about knowing what I'm being asked to sell. Grant began emailing that evening. Avery appeared agitated during our discussion. Avery is struggling to process recent business changes. Future conversations should include a neutral mediator. Each sounded concerned. Together, they created a record of instability. I replied once, preserve all company and financing records pending my ownership review. Then I forwarded everything to Nia. For 4 days, we worked from her office above a pharmacy. I compared my signatures with the mortgage copy. Mine varied. The forged version stayed identical. Its edges compressed like a pasted image. Nia obtained the first records through my ownership demand. We traced payments from the mortgage account to contractors, furniture deposits, and design fees. Then she stopped scrolling. What is it? She turned the monitor toward me. Less than half of the loan supported announced renovations. 5 transfers totaling $598,400 had gone to Northline and 2 related accounts. The authorized contacts were Grant Mercer and Caleb Bennett. The names on the transfer forms did not shock me. The amounts did. Grant and Caleb had not merely borrowed against the lodge. They had created a pipeline, and Northline was only the first branch. Nia printed the ledger. If they think you are negotiating, they may keep disclosing records. They already think I care about the price. Then let them. That afternoon, I emailed Grant. I am willing to consider selling my interest if the transaction closes by January and I receive complete financial disclosure before signing. His reply arrived 11 minutes later. I knew you would be reasonable. Reasonable. That was the word used when a woman was expected to accept damage quietly. At dinner, I brought the unsigned proposal and left my employee plan locked in the cabin. A leather binder waited beside my plate. Grant poured wine. To new beginnings. I haven't agreed to your number. But you agreed to the direction. I opened the binder. Vendor contracts, insurance schedules, loan applications, and meeting minutes, exactly what I had requested. Grant mistook my silence for surrender. The closing is in January, he said. Once the investors fund phase 2, everyone walks away protected. Everyone? His smile paused. You, me, Caleb. 2 employees carried mattresses from the West Wing. The next morning, Marisol Vega found me beside the maintenance shed. Are you really selling? I am reviewing an offer. That is not what they told us. She handed me termination notices. 40 employees would lose their jobs after the winter showcase. 12 lived in lodge housing and had 30 days to leave. The notices carried my typed approval. My old instinct was to take the papers and solve everything alone. Instead, I asked, who has copies? Most of us. Keep them. Photograph equipment before it leaves. Serial numbers, room numbers, dates. Do not enter locked areas or take private files. Marisol studied me. So you are not surrendering? Not today. For once, someone else carried the weight. Northline billed for site work that had never occurred. An insurer had been told operations would continue, although employee housing was marked for demolition. Board minutes claimed I attended a video meeting from Duluth on a night I was inside a flooded pump station with 6 county officials. Caleb asked to meet alone. He chose the boathouse, beneath our mother's portrait. Half the canoes had been tagged for auction. You always knew this place would be yours, he said. It was left to both of us. You got control. I got permission to stand nearby. You got 20% because I gave it to you. His jaw tightened. Exactly. Even my ownership came from you. Years of rescue kept him afloat and let him blame me whenever he felt small. So this deal proves you are successful? It proves I can build something bigger than a family motel. It is a lodge. It is debt with a view. He glanced at our mother's portrait. Grant believes in me. Grant listed himself as an authorized contact on accounts holding nearly $600,000. Caleb's face changed for 1 second, enough to tell me he knew about the transfers, but not everything behind them, he recovered. You are looking for reasons to destroy this. No. I am deciding what your confidence is worth. Grant increased the pressure 2 days later. He brought a mediator to the cabin and placed a marital settlement beside the business buyout. Near the end was a release covering every financial act during our marriage. If you sign both, Grant said, there is no public fight. And if I do not? We continue documenting your refusal to cooperate. His tone stayed gentle. The threat did not. I asked for 48 hours. He believed I was frightened. I was buying time. My attorney sent preservation notices to the lender, Northline, our email provider, and the signature company. Nia warned the remaining funds might be released before the fraud review finished, so I let Grant keep preparing the showcase. He hired musicians. Caleb approved imported furniture. Workers packed their rooms while Grant practiced a speech about protecting local heritage. Every dollar they spent made them more confident. Every record they produced narrowed the trap. On the 5th morning, Nia called before sunrise. The signature company responded. I drove over. The log showed the time, device, and network used to approve the mortgage. The signature had been applied from the computer in Grant's lodge office. At that same minute, I was 312 miles away, visible on county flood control footage beside a damaged pumping station. The proof should have put me back in control. Instead, the bank froze my access before noon. We were preparing the signature log when the loan officer called, her voice suddenly formal. Ms. Bennett, we need you at the bank immediately. At the bank, 2 attorneys and a compliance officer waited beside a folder bearing my name. The officer slid over a transfer summary. 3 months earlier, while I was working flood sites, Bennett Lodge Holdings had allegedly paid $214,000 to a consulting company called Avery Bennett Risk Solutions. I had never created that company. The statements showed withdrawals for travel, equipment, and fees, all approved with my credentials. Grant had not merely forged my signature on the mortgage. He had built another story in which I was the thief. Until this is resolved, the attorney said, your access to the operating and loan accounts will remain suspended. I own 60%. And these documents allege that you diverted company funds. I placed the signature report on the table. This mortgage approval came from Grant's office while I was 312 miles away. We will review it. The consulting account also requires investigation. Outside, I sat behind the wheel without starting the car. My mother's brass lodge key rested in one palm. Grant's settlement offer lay on the passenger seat, sign away the lodge, and the accusation disappeared of the fight, and I could lose more than property. My engineering license depended on integrity. Even a false fraud allegation could follow me into every public contract. My phone rang again. A reporter from the Lake Arlen Business Journal asked, "Are you denying company money was transferred to an account in your name?" I ended the call. Within an hour, Caleb posted through the lodge's public page. He called for my temporary removal as controlling member until the financial questions were answered. My own brother had turned Grant's frame-up into public concern. I told Nia to stop working. She stared at me. No, Tessa has lost her job. Marisol could lose her housing. If the state investigates me, everyone attached to this gets dragged in. You think isolation protects people? It limits the damage. It makes Grant the only person telling the story. I looked away. Nia lowered her voice. This is the weakness he planned around. You disappear when you are hurt, then call it responsibility. The words landed because they were true. For years, I had handled every emergency privately. Caleb's debts. Grant's failed expansions. Repairs nobody could afford. Each time I solved a problem quietly, they learned I would carry the cost without exposing who created it. Tessa arrived that evening with another notebook and a maintenance invoice. I remembered something, she said. The consulting company supposedly met with Grant here on August 14th. Nia checked the fabricated account records. The first large transfer had been authorized that day. Tessa tapped the invoice. Grant ordered the office cameras shut down from 8 until 6. He refused to let our regular technician handle it. The contractor was based near Owen Voss's mailbox address. It was not proof by itself, but the dates connected. Nia traced the consulting company's registration. It had been opened online using a scanned copy of my passport, my tax information, and an old lodge utility bill. All three had been stored in the locked cabinet inside Grant's office. The application had been submitted 2 weeks before my flood assignment began. This was not panic after I returned. Grant had prepared the crime before I left. Next morning, he came to the cabin alone and placed a new agreement on the table. Sign the ownership transfer and marital release, he said. The bank will receive corrected records. The consulting issue will go away. You can make it disappear? I can clarify that the account was created for legitimate project expenses. Then clarify it now. His mouth tightened. You are forcing this into something ugly. No, Grant. You built something ugly and put my name on it. He leaned closer. You can leave with money and your reputation, or gamble both on a fight nobody understands. For the first time, I stopped pretending the buyout was possible. I'm not signing. His expression changed. Not anger. Calculation, then be ready for what comes next. After he left, I called Nia, Tessa, and my attorney back to the cabin. I gave them the bank file, passport evidence, maintenance invoice, and archived flood site footage showing exactly where I had been. We are done defending pieces, I said. We exposed the whole structure. That night, Caleb sent a voice message from an unknown number. His breathing was uneven. Avery, don't call me back. Grant thinks the showcase will protect him. He plans to move every dollar left in the loan account as soon as the investors leave. If you're going to stop him, do it before then. I played Caleb's message twice, then sent it to Nia and my attorney. Does this buy him immunity? Nia asked. No. He helped mortgage the lodge. My attorney nodded. Cooperation may matter later. It does not erase participation. Before dawn, we assembled the fraud package, the signature log, account records, Northline transfers, Tessa's invoice, false minutes, termination notices, and flood site footage proving where I had been. My attorney submitted everything to the lender's fraud department. The response was brief: materials received. Review pending, no promise. No timetable. Just confirmation that the people holding the loan now knew it might all be built on fraud. I kept going. Will they stop the closing? They will not tell us. The bank decides independently. Waiting gave Grant room to move. Caleb called that afternoon. You got my message? Yes. Then you know I'm trying to help. You are trying to avoid going down with him. That is not fair. Neither was signing a mortgage against property you did not control. He went quiet. I love you, I said. That no longer means I protect you from consequences. What do you want? The records Grant kept from you. Original minutes, transfer approvals. Anything showing what you signed and what he changed. If I give you that, he will know. Then decide which man you are afraid to become. That night, Marisol brought 12 employees to the cabin. They stood in the cold kitchen wearing coats. I placed the folder I had carried home on the table. I owe you an apology. I stayed away too long, and when I was here, I treated this lodge like a problem only I could solve. I did not approve the layoffs. Before I left, I was preparing a plan that would place part of the company into an employee trust. I opened the preliminary approval. The proposal offered workers a protected ownership share, voting rights on staffing decisions, and a path to buy more equity. It still required financing. It did not erase the mortgage or guarantee survival, so this is real? It was supposed to be my homecoming announcement. I cannot promise victory, I said. I can promise no agreement will use your support without consent. Marisol took over. Employees wrote statements about false layoffs, housing threats, removed equipment, and Grant's claim that I approved everything. By midnight, signatures covered the kitchen table. For once, leadership meant letting them stand beside me. Grant sensed the change. The next morning, supervisors questioned staff about who had met with me. Grant scheduled rehearsals and told employees to applaud when his presentation mentioned local jobs. Marisol reminded them they could work without endorsing the deal. Enough agreed that Grant could no longer claim unanimous support. Nia built a recovery model from the lodge's real numbers. If the disputed expansion debt was separated through settlement and the original operation continued, the business could survive. Barely. This is not a miracle plan, she warned. Good. Miracles are difficult to finance. We let the showcase continue. My attorney advised against a public accusation before Grant made his final claims. If he repeated the false ownership story and signed personal guarantees after preservation notices, his knowledge would be harder to deny, so I watched him spend. Musicians rehearsed. Imported chairs arrived while employees packed dishes. Ceremonial shovels waited outside beneath a groundbreaking banner. I placed my mother's guest ledger beside the demolition plans. Her handwriting listed honeymooners, fishing families, stranded travelers, and workers who stayed through winter storms. Grant's plan reduced them to projected revenue per room. At 2:13 a.m., Caleb sent a video. He was inside Grant's office, opening a locked cabinet. Inside were original minutes, altered copies, and approval pages bearing signatures that did not match earlier versions. I signed some of these, he whispered. Not all of them. He uploaded the files, then added, I'm not asking you to forgive me. For once, he understood that evidence was not repentance. By morning, the lender confirmed the records were under review. It still would not say whether funding would stop. The showcase was scheduled for Friday afternoon. On Thursday, Grant canceled our mediator session. His email said the investors wanted an accelerated timetable. I called Marisol. Has anything changed? More cars than usual. Bank representatives arrived 20 minutes ago. The drive along the lake took 12 minutes. I made it in 9. Grant had moved the signing forward by a full day. When I entered the lobby, musicians were playing, champagne was poured, and every investor faced final documents. Grant stood at the screen, smiling. The bank's counsel was reaching for a pen. Before anyone signs, I said, confirm who owns the company. The music died. The room froze. Grant lowered the microphone. Avery, this is a private financing meeting. I own 60% of Bennett Lodge Holdings. That makes it my meeting, too. Grant approached with the calm expression he used when he wanted witnesses to remember him as reasonable. Her control rights are under review because of financial misconduct, he said. My attorney entered behind me with Nia. No court has removed Ms. Bennett's ownership or voting authority, he said. Any document claiming otherwise is disputed. Grant signaled to security. The bank's counsel stood. Do not remove anyone. The lender has suspended today's funding. What does suspended mean? An investor asked. No funds will be released, no closing documents accepted, and the remaining loan balance is restricted pending a fraud review. Grant's smile disappeared. You received Avery's accusations. That does not make them true. No, the counsel replied. Authenticated records make them material. Nia connected her laptop. The resort image vanished. My forged signature appeared. She displayed the electronic log showing it had been applied from Grant's office computer while county footage placed me 312 miles away. Then came the false minutes. Mortgage application and consulting company opened with my passport copy. Grant pointed at Caleb. He handled the paperwork. Caleb stood near the back wall, pale and silent. Nia showed the transfers. Nearly $600,000 had moved through Northline and related accounts. Another $214,000 had been routed through the company created in my name. Owen Voss's address linked Northline to the contractor hired when Grant disabled the office cameras. Grant turned to me. You planned this because you could not stand seeing the lodge succeed without you. I looked at the employees across the rear wall. Marisol stood in front. None applauded. You told them I approved their layoffs. You told the bank I approved the mortgage. You told investors I surrendered control. Which success should I celebrate? The lodge was dying, Grant said. You were never here. I was earning the contracts that kept it open. And every time you saved it, everyone was reminded it belonged to you. I managed a business where your name opened every door and mine appeared under spouse. Caleb and I built something big enough to matter. You built it with forged authority. You made partnership impossible. The accusation hurt because part of it was true. I treated competence like it could replace conversation, I said. I solved problems alone and called it responsibility. But my failures as a wife did not authorize fraud. Your resentment did not transfer ownership. Feeling invisible did not give you permission to erase me. Caleb stepped forward and placed a drive on the table. I signed the initial financing request, he said. I knew Avery had not approved the mortgage. Grant said the power of attorney covered it and she would sign later. I believed what I wanted to believe. He faced the investors, but some minutes were changed after I signed them. Approval pages were added. The originals are on that drive. Grant's voice dropped. Think carefully. I should have done that before. The bank's counsel accepted the drive without promising what it proved. My attorney handed Grant notice removing him as manager under my controlling member authority. A second notice preserved civil claims for diverted funds, identity misuse, and breach of duty. You cannot operate without the expansion money. Nia changed the screen. Her recovery model showed reduced occupancy, deferred repairs, outside financing still needed, and months of narrow cash flow. The lodge can remain viable, she said. If disputed expansion debt and unauthorized transfers are separated through settlement. There is no guarantee. There is a credible path. Grant laughed. An employee trust is sentiment, not finance. It is both, I said. And the people affected were allowed to read it. The lead investor removed his nameplate. 2 others followed. We are withdrawing pending the investigation, he said. The bank restricted the remaining funds and demanded an accounting. The showcase expenses and bridge obligations remained. Grant had signed personal guarantees for both. He looked at the counsel. Those guarantees depended on today's closing. They remain enforceable according to their terms, she said. Outside, snow covered the ceremonial shovels beneath the groundbreaking banner. One by one, the investors left. Employees stayed long enough to hear Marisol confirm that evening shifts would continue under temporary supervision. I found Grant alone in the lobby. Staring at the blank screen where his resort had been. You could have spoken to me, he said. I tried. No. You fixed things. That is not the same. He was right about that. Then he looked at me with confusion, not shame. I truly thought you would forgive me, he said. Why? Because you always protected the family before.